Hey everybody, it's Matt Mayoko at NBC Sports Bay Area checking in on a Tuesday sandwich between the 49ers 38 to 10 loss to the Green Bay Packers and then what lies ahead, which is the Thanksgiving holiday followed by the 49ers going to Buffalo Wings territory. And boy, what a difficult assignment that is for the 49ers to be traveling to Green Bay, coming back home, going to Buffalo, and facing one of the best teams in the NFL on coming after their bye week. So, boy, if things were tough in Green Bay, I kind of I wonder what it's going to be like Sunday in Buffalo. On this video, I want to kind of get into where things have gone wrong, and I when I tried to take a deep dive this morning into some of the numbers, some things really surprised me, and then maybe other things didn't. But first off, this video is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. It's going to be opening a new location in Danville really soon in the Danville Livery. It's going to be a great spot. And I guarantee you, I will make it over there quite often. So if you're in the Danville area, keep your eyes open for the opening of Canyon Club Brewery. But if you want to go to Canyon Club Brewery right now, you don't have to wait around. There's also a location in Moraga. That's the original location. And it's a great space for outdoors, although the weather's been a little bit inclement. So maybe the outdoor space hasn't been as inviting, but it's a large outdoor space with fire pits. They have a great selection of beer. They have some tasty bites on the menu, and it's just a great atmosphere. So it's definitely one of my go-to spots, Canyon Club Brewery in Moraga. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the numbers. And I'm going to try to just kind of simplify this as much as possible because, whenever somebody starts spouting numbers, oftentimes my eyes kind of glaze over and I lose interest. But as I look at it, let's start with the individuals. I think there are three players on each side of the ball who had very good seasons in 2023 and aren't having good seasons this year, and for a variety of reasons. A lot of them are kind of circumstances outside of their control. But let's just start on offense, where 49ers last year had the uh, they had the second ranked offense in the NFL as far as yards per game, nearly 400. But you know what? They haven't fallen off that much at all this year. Their total yards this year ranks them fourth in the NFL, and that was after that disaster in Green Bay. But I would say that the difference, the huge difference is just in the red zone. The 49ers last year, and this goes for both sides, offense and defense. Last year, the 49ers were first in the NFL in red zone offense, scoring 68% of the time. This year, they're tied for 25th in the NFL, scoring touchdowns only 50% of the time. So the three guys I kind of pinpointed on offense that have fallen off dramatically as far as the production. And, there are other guys who have risen their games, lowered their games. For instance, Brock Purdy, I think, is just a little bit under what he did last year. Certainly statistically, going from a 113 passer rating now to a 95 or 96. I think that shows something. But I wouldn't say that he has fallen off dramatically. Um, let's go with Jake Brendel. I don't think he's fallen off dramatically. Is he having a worse season this year than last year? Yes, but not dramatically. Um, right tackle Colton McKivitz. Is he having a better season this year than last year? Absolutely. Dramatically? Maybe not dramatically. Um, Dominic Pooney has given the 49ers an upgraded right guard. But I'm going to focus in on the guys who I think, the production last year matched to this year is completely different. And the first one is Christian McCaffrey for reasons why we know. He missed the first 8 games of the season with an Achilles, with the tendonitis, and then the 3 games he's been back, the production level hasn't been there. So that's one. The other one is Brandon Ayuk. Even before his season-ending injury, he wasn't playing at that kind of level where he's producing. Was he showing signs of coming on? Perhaps, but out for the season with a torn ACL. So those are two guys that are very obvious, two guys who are huge parts of the offense last year, who basically aren't parts of the offense at all this year. And then the other one is Deebo Samuel. And the numbers aren't as significant maybe as you might think. Last year, he averaged about 60 yards receiving per game. This year, that's down to 51. Last year, he averaged about 15 yards rushing per game. That's down um, this year to 8 yards rushing per game. So those are some of the things. And Samuel had the two passes that he should have caught in the game Sunday. That one went through his hands and ended up in the arms of Xavier McKinney for an interception. Another one was just an incomplete pass. But I think our perception of Deebo Samuel's game on Sunday would have been dramatically different had uh, had Eric Saubert not been called for that holding penalty on the 87-yard kickoff return. And watching that play, uh, frankly, I think it was a bad call. I think Eric Saubert's biggest problem was that he pancaked Zane Anderson, the special teams player for the Packers, and because he just kind of manhandled him. I mean, his hands were inside, and usually uh, that is allowed. And so that was a play I think the 49ers felt like the officiating kind of got him because it looked like it was a good, clean block for Eric Saubert. So that's kind of a look at the offensive side. Over on the defensive side, let's go to red zone once again. Last year, the 49ers were 11th in the NFL as far as defense in the red zone. They gave up touchdowns on 52.5% of the opposition's red zone appearances. This year, that number is up to 67.6%. That's 29th in the league. So if you look at both red zones, offense and defense, that's where the 49ers have faltered. But the overall numbers, yeah, I'm kind of surprised, really, when you think about last year, the 49ers were eighth in the NFL in total defense. This year, they're seventh in the NFL. Now, the numbers yards per game is just up slightly from last year. The biggest difference has been the rushing yards per game for the 49ers. Last year, they gave up the third amount of rushing yards in the league at 89.7. This year, they're up to 11th. However, I think a lot of that has to do with the 49ers aren't playing from ahead as much. So teams are running the ball more. But if you just look at average yards per rush, last year the 49ers gave up 4.1 yards per rushing attempt. This year it's only up to 4.2. So I think circumstances have a lot to do with that as well. When I look at the three players who were good last year and haven't given them much at all this year, I hate to even bring up his name, but Charvarius Ward is at the top of the list for a lot of reasons. We know why. And again, he had a really good season last year, was a second team All Pro. This year, his play fell off dramatically up to this point for, reasons that I don't think anybody can fault Charvarius Ward. The other two guys are definitely injury related. Javon Hargrave last year had a pretty good season. Um, Probably not quite at the level the 49ers were hoping for when they signed him to that big money deal, but he still had a good season in 2023. This year, he wasn't off to a good start and then sustains the season ending torn tricep. So that's one area where they've really dropped off, and it shows with the play on the defensive line. And then, of course, Dre Greenlaw, a good season last year, was in that talk about Pro Bowl and all that, and this year hasn't stepped on the field at all. So those are the areas where I think red zone special teams is a big one. I think the offensive numbers and the defensive numbers are a lot closer this year compared to last year, as you might think, just in those clutch situations, red zone. And then special teams has been an unmitigated disaster for them in every imaginable way. And I think that has cost them some games as well. And then you get to, I think we're talking about a very fine line here between wins and losses. And, it'll be interesting to see like just where the 49ers go from here. One thing they got to do is lobby the schedule makers to not put them behind the eight ball again. In 2023, they overcame this very significant rest disadvantage. According to Sharp Football Analysis, last year, 2023, the 49ers had a net minus 20 days of rest than their opposition. So, in other words, let's just say this game coming up here, the 49ers have what, 7 days of rest, I guess, or 6 days of rest between the game against the Packers and the game against the Bills. The Bills are coming off the bye week. So they have, whatever that is, that would be a -7 rest days. 49ers have had other situations like that, and very rarely do they have a rest advantage. This year, I talked about last year was -20. This year is -21 days of rest, and that's the largest, according to Sharp Football Analysis, in the last decade. So, there are a lot of, kind of areas where you can't define. I totally agree with everybody who sees just something's different. The off season was different. The contract situations were different. The just the craziness of all kinds of stuff. Debo Samuel and Jake Moody and Tabor Pepper and I don't know. It's just been a weird year. The vibes haven't been there. I know that's completely can't define vibes, but it feels off. But it's just kind of interesting to me that when you look at the numbers aren't off as much as you would think. Like except for going back to McCaffrey. I mean, last year he was a touchdown machine. This year through 3 games, no touchdowns. That's what the 49ers need, touchdowns. And so, I don't know what to tell you other than things just seem off. The numbers don't necessarily point to that, but being around that building, it feels different. There's no question about it, and we'll see how this team finishes the season. I think we're going to find out a lot about the character of this team over the final 6 games of the year to see how they respond and how they play for their own jobs and how they play for perhaps some of their position coaches' jobs. Okay, before I leave you, just want to give you some injury updates that Kyle Shanahan revealed on his Monday afternoon conference call. The first one, Brock Purdy threw lightly at practice, or wasn't a practice. I think they just kind of went out and he threw the ball around a little bit on Monday. He's feeling a lot better. They're going to rest him on Tuesday, and then we'll see if he can practice on Wednesday, and if so, how much. But if he doesn't go, Brandon Allen would get his second start. A lot of questions. Why Brandon Allen, not Joshua Dobbs? First off, I think when you look at that game Sunday, I don't think Brandon Allen was the problem. There were some things that certainly went against them. He did make a really strong read when he went through his progression and found George Kittle in the end zone for that touchdown. And I think that that's probably the thing that prompted Kyle Shanahan to go with Brandon Allen over Joshua Dobbs as the number 2 quarterback to open the season, is that Allen is better about going through his progression, whereas Dobbs' instinct maybe is to break his hands and start running before letting the play fully develop. Um, Trent Williams and Nick Bosa had MRIs. It doesn't seem to be anything of too much concern, but they're just waiting to see how they're going to feel when this week of practice begins. The 49ers will open the practice window for the aforementioned Dre Greenlaw. So they'll just kind of see how he is. I wouldn't expect them to just rush him back out there and play against Buffalo, but we shall see. 49ers closed the practice window for John Feliciano and his knee, so he will remain on injured reserve for the remainder of the season. He will not step on the field for the 49ers this year. Kyle Shanahan said that knee just did not respond as they had hoped. We also got Charvarius Ward will be practicing again. 49ers are hoping he takes another step forward, and they're not going to rush it with him. Whenever he's ready, that's when he'll get back on the field. But I do think that his presence was missed Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, no doubt about it. And then Aaron Banks and Jordan Elliott go into the concussion protocol. Jacob Cowing, who missed the game against Green Bay, remains in the concussion protocol. And Dominic Pooney and Diamador Lenore had some MRIs on Pooney, his shoulder, Diamador Lenore a knee, which he banged. It's not a, as I understand it, it's not a ligament type of thing. So their status is kind of day to day throughout this week to see how they feel. So 49ers depth on the offensive line with Banks and the concussion protocol and Pooney kind of battling a shoulder that could be tested a little bit. Spencer Burford, Nick Zakel, and Ben Barch are the 49ers backup guys at those spots. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching this video to the conclusion. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment and a like and whatever else. And that is it for now.